This lesson we're going to be looking at deconstruction and how we can deconstruct arrays, as well as how we can deconstruct objects and use the variables that we're extracting out of those arrays and objects and then use them within our code. So we're going to have several different examples of the arrays and also objects, and then also how we can assign specific variable names to objects. That's all coming up. Deconstructing is a feature in JavaScript that allows you to extract values from arrays and objects and then assign them to variables. I've got an index file set up, linked to a file called app4.js, and I've got the index file opened up within the web browser, and the web browser using the DevTools console so that we can see the output from the JavaScript. So it's a convenient way to and an efficient way to extract multiple values from data structures and avoid unnecessary repetitions in code. So let's give an example of that. So first of all, we're going to create an array, and this array can just be named numbers, and we'll add in some numbers within the array. So what we want to do is we want to deconstruct these values and assign them to variables. And the way that we do that is that we can select the value and create the array that we want. So if we want first, second, and then using the ... in order to create the rest. And this is going to be a deconstruction of the numbers array that we just created. So let's log out what we have for numbers. And we're going to log that into the console. So there's our numbers array. And now it's been deconstructed. So let's set out and we'll output the deconstructed values into the console log as well. So we've got the first one is first. Second is going to be in this second value. And then we're just going to get the remaining values in an array called rest. So save those and then output those. And as we can see, what happened is that for the variable first, it's going to return back the value of 1. We can also type first within the DevTools there, and we see it's returning back the corresponding value of 1 as we deconstructed the numbers array. And the first value with index value of 0 had a value of 1, and then 2 was assigned to second, and then we just did the ... to select the remainder, and that allowed the remainder, or the remaining values that are within the numbers array, to be assigned to a new array called rest. So this is, as you can see, a very efficient way that we can declare the values of first, second, and rest. The values from the numbers array are then deconstructed, so it's the numbers array, and assigned to these variables that are contained within the brackets. The rest syntax is called spread operator, and it's used to extract all of the remaining elements into a new array. So we've got the spread operator with the 3 dots there, and then assigning it to the variable value of rest, so that's assigning it to that value. You can also deconstruct objects. So let's give another example where we've got person, and then this is going to be the object that we're creating. So it's going to have a property name of name and a value of Laurence Svekis, and then we've got the age there, and give it an age of 40, and location, and this is going to be whatever location that we want to add in there. So that will save the object, the person object. You can also, of course, log out the object information. So it's the person object being logged out. And I'll just update this to LOC for the location. I had a misspelling there. So that's, we've got the person being output. So let's do the deconstruction, and the same way that we did for the array, we're going to set it up as an object that we're deconstructing, and it's going to be deconstructing the person object that we just created. And let's set the variable name. So we've got the name, we've got the age, and the location. So that's going to do a deconstruction of person. And now we can use the variables within our code. So there's the value for name, there's going to be the value for age, and then also the value for location, with the variables that we've assigned within the deconstruction. So we see the output being output within the console. So in the example, the person object is deconstructed and assigned to variables within the statement, and the variables with the same name as the object properties. So we have to have the same name as the object properties. So that's another thing to avoid, as location is already a variable that's by default within the local. So local location would have come back, and we've already assigned location, so we can't overwrite the location. And in this case, if we kept that as location, we would be throwing an error. So we need to have the same name that we're using within the deconstruction as the object property names, and that's why we also changed it to LOC. And then the curly brackets are used to extract the values from the object. Let's go have another example where we're going to have different variable names that we want to deconstruct. So in case we do have a person as a location, so let's do and this one is going to be location, and actually I'm going to call this person 1. So right now we wouldn't be able to do it the same way as we were doing it here originally. And then we've also got the variable names that are already assigned. So this is going to throw an error. We're going to have a problem here that we've already assigned the value of name. We're going to throw an error there. So in this case, what we want to do is we want to reassign to a different variable value. So in this case, instead of name, we're going to deconstruct it. So using the property value there as name, instead of assigning it to a variable called name, we're going to assign it to a variable called full name. And here we're going to assign the value of age. So we're going to assign that to person's age. And then instead of the location, we're going to assign that to, actually we'll just keep it right now as the LOC. And I'll show you what happens here is that we see that LOC has already been declared. So if we want to set this up as location, we already see also that location has been declared because there is a value for location by default. So we can't use the location as a variable that we're assigning. So here we can just select a city that we're going to be assigning it to. So that allows us to output these values. So instead of the value for name, we're using the full name. Here we're using the person's age. And then the last one, we're going to be assigning it to the value of city. So that allows us to output those values from the person that we deconstructed. So the deconstructing is a powerful feature in JavaScript that can make your code more readable, concise, expressive. And by extracting the values from arrays and objects and assigning them to variables, you can also avoid repetitive verbose code and write more effective and maintainable code. So it's a really powerful way to do the deconstruction. Let's also try one more example here. So just do one more here in the beginning where we've got a bunch of colors within an array. So let's create the array. So the first color is red. Then we've got a value of green. And then let's do a value of blue. And then do a deconstruction of those colors. So again, as we just saw before, that we're assigning it to the colors array. And then the deconstruction values are going to be red and green and blue. And with the arrays, these values can actually be anything. So they're not like the object properties that we just saw, where we can assign it to the various color values. And then here we can output them within the console, where we're going to output the values of A, B, and C into the console. So let's go ahead and do that. So there's our values of red, green, and blue being output into the console after the array has been deconstructed. With the arrays, we have a little bit more flexibility on the variable names, and we're within the objects to keep in mind that if we do want to assign a different variable name to the object property name, it has to be different, and we have to do it within the object structure where we've got the name paired values.